Hello, good morning. This is Lee again at Arcat. I think we started bang on time at 2 o'clock. I'm not sure what is the difference between Greenwich Mean Time and British. Is it British Standard Time or British Summer Time? It's obviously not summer. Um, but we're here. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Uh, we were supposed to have an art class this morning live in the Ards Art Centre. Um, Sadly, because of the new restrictions here in the UK and in Northern Ireland, those were all delayed, and that's been sort of put back on hold or cancelled. We found out, yeah, sort of late last night, sorry, late on in the afternoon yesterday, which is a bit of a shame because we had the first Monday class and it was great to be back with real life people in a real life environment. I really enjoyed it. Those 2 hours zipped past really, really fast. We had some new members there with us, and we had a lot of old faces. So old, regular faces um, in the classroom, and it was really great to be back in the environment. Even though it was a bit weird because we had all the tables set out like it was an old school classroom. Everybody was facing forward. Everybody was wearing masks. Everything was nicely cleaned and sanitized before everybody sat down. So all the health and safety restrictions were in place for us to have the live drawing class in real life. And then sadly, because of the restrictions, they've been put on hold for at least 4 weeks. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we can carry those on after the lockdown is over, but we'll have to kind of wait and see. But we are still going to do this at 2 o'clock every Saturday. The other bit of good news is, I don't know if you've been following Sky Arts. Sky Arts, they have their Portrait Artist of the Year. For anybody who's following elsewhere around the world who doesn't have access to Sky, you can actually follow this on their Sky TV Facebook page. What they're going to do on a Sunday at 10 o'clock, they're going to do a live paint or draw portrait session for 4 hours. They have a celebrity comes in and sits. They have the judges there. They have, I think, an ex-contestant from a previous year who will also be there as well. Have an art chat. You paint along for 4 hours, and then you upload your image that you've created up onto Instagram, and they select a winner each week. So I'm going to be doing it tomorrow. I'm not going to be on it, but I'm going to sit down and paint for 4 hours, which I'm really looking forward to because we did this during the summer. Oh, they did it during the summer, and I sat along and had a go as well. And it was it was a really good highlight of the week. I really, really enjoyed it. Learned an awful lot. Even through the process of doing my own artwork, I pick up little tiny challenges in my process, and it's really sort of pushed my portraiture along a little bit. It pushed it along in a technical sense. It made me start to think about more of the compositional style of work that I've been creating. So again, I'm in the same boat as you. I'm still learning as well. I was going to have the picture of Leslie finished, but I was being quite wise and thought, well, it might be an idea just to hold back, hold fire, just in case, and that just in case sadly came true. So I'm going to carry on with Leslie's portrait today. I'm just going to close one of my windows a little bit so I can see the chat. So I know Alex is there already because there's a brief chat there in the window about Greenwich Mean Time or British Summertime. Desiree, hello, good morning. It was great to see you in the class on Monday, Desiree, and thank you so much for your gift. That was so kind of you. We really do appreciate it, and yeah, we really enjoyed it. So thank you very much for that. It was such a nice thing. See, Alex is here as well. Got a couple of other people, guys. If you join us, say hello. Say hello in the chat so we know who's there. It's a very informal place. You can ask any art-related questions. So if you're having any problems with your artwork, you're just starting out and you don't know where to start. We had a couple of new people on Monday having the same issue. Well, where do you start with the thing that you want to draw? What do you want to draw? How do you draw? You know, you stare at a blank page, but the options of drawing anything can be a bit overwhelming. So we sort of broke it down a little bit, and I was asking people, you know, what is it you'd really like to draw? And often people go, oh, I'd really like to do portraits, but they're too hard. I'll draw something simple. And what I'd like you to do is change the thought process a little bit, because whatever it is you want to draw will carry you through the learning process. it's a challenge. You might not achieve the results you want to achieve straight away, and that's okay. That is a part of the process of learning. I even in my portraiture, I don't get it right first time. I have to adjust and move things around a little bit, and you become comfortable with that process as you carry on as an artist, and things get easier as you do the artwork. I normally sort of say to people when they're first starting off, say for example, you can see here on the screen, I've got a picture of Leslie. When we're drawing a portrait, it's just to make a little mark at the top, a little mark at the bottom, a little mark at the side of where the head is, and then start to plan out, just kind of map out where the top of the head's going to be in your picture frame. So you're not worried about details, you're not worried about eyes and, oh, I can't draw noses, or I can't draw mouths, all the things that you think you can't do, put those aside. You've got to figure out where this head's going to go first. So you break it down step by step, rather than trying to rushing and draw everything all at once, and then you get people get very frustrated, and then they want to jump in and start, scribbling in, rendering in details and putting in textures straight away. Sometimes that can trip you up when you're first starting out. Oh, you've got a slow buffering connection. That might be something to do with your internet. Everything seems to be working relatively soon. I always kind of check my internet broadband speed online, do it on a regular basis, just so I can see that we've got enough broadband width to kind of produce this. So it might be in your area. Again, it could be the number of people using internet as well in the household that can have an effect on it. So just double check you haven't got, say, your mobile phone connected to it as well as your iPad and the computer on at the same time. There can be a draw on the internet if that's one of the problems you're having. The only reason I kind of know this is because I've had the same problems. I kind of look at my phone and noticing things kind of slowing down a little bit when we're all in the household. We're all using 3 or 4 devices at the same time. It used to be that you could only use one thing at a time, like a computer, but we've all got mobile phones and TVs connected to the internet, so people can stream movies and stuff like that. So if you do have a problem with a slow internet, maybe switch 1 or 2 of those things off so you can just concentrate on the one thing. So yeah, when we're starting off drawing a portrait, it is literally just to mark it out simply. Don't rush this part. This helps you set up for the rest of the drawing. So if you just make random marks anywhere, just double check. You can check the corner of the page. How far away is it from the top of the head? Now, what I've done in this picture, I've edited it slightly and I've got my photographic reference. I thought that gap was just a little bit too big. So I dropped the gap down a little bit, so my actual corner of the page is about there on the picture. So when I'm looking at the reference from there to the top of the head, I can go there to the top of the head, and do they look the same? It is literally playing spot the difference to begin with, before we get sucked into doing all of the rendering in detail. What I'd like to ask you, those who are watching and joining in live, you can do this again if you're watching this at a later stage, is just give me 1 or 2 areas that you would really like to develop. Things that kind of make you a little bit cautious or a little bit frustrated, or what are those things? If you can just type them in, or you can type them into the messages later on. I always get messages after this has gone out if people have written a comment, so I can go back in and have a look. So even if this might be a year or 2 down the line, don't worry, write it down, because I want to continue doing this, so I'll still get that message and I'll still be able to link it live to the next session that we do. If you're doing it live here, we can talk about it now. And I dare say that if you're having an issue with a part of your drawing process, somebody else will be having the same issue, and your question can actually help them as well. So I was just realising I've got the camera up there. Go to that one, which is just me, but this is the picture. Sorry, that's the picture of Leslie. If I get my hand there, that's a picture of Leslie that we're doing. Now you can see on the screen it's a much clearer, sharper image than the photographic reference that I've got. Your references can give you an awful lot of information. I've got enough information there that I need to do my drawing, but the better the reference, the better your drawing. And I always try and get the reference area to a similar scale or size to the thing that I'm drawing. Sometimes that's not possible, especially if you're doing it on large scale. To get a large scale print and hold that up as you're drawing can be quite a difficult process. but always have your reference up beside your drawing surface so you can easily flip between the two. The other problem that people tend to have when they're starting off is they get a little bit lost visually. They'll concentrate on a line or a shape, or a nose or a detail, and they lose perspective about where the rest of the face is. You've got to think, we're moving a three-dimensional object, a face or a head, into the illusion of a two-dimensional space, so we've got to kind of map things out a little bit. So before we get sucked into doing the details and things, we place little marks as to where we associate the shapes to be. You know, where do we see that kind of hairline? We can see things are obviously a lot darker in the real image. Flick over to the other camera there. You can see things are a lot. Zoom you in a little bit. Ooh, there we go. Yep, we can see that this is an awful lot darker than we've got here, but I would suggest draw lightly to begin with, and when you feel pretty comfortable as to where things are placed, that's when we can start the rendering process. That's when we can start adding layers of washes of pencil to build up the darkness of something. If you are tempted to put it in straight away as you're trying to figure out where things are, you can often layer down graphite too heavily, and as you go, oh, that's in the wrong place, I just need to rub it out, and you might rush it a little bit. Sometimes you put down pencil very, very hard. It's very hard to get rid of it. It's kind of like a ghostly image kind of remains on the paper, so I always draw lightly. You can see it, I'm holding the pencil at the end when I lay it down. And the other good thing about, because I'm drawing on such a small scale, drawing with a mechanical pencil is really beneficial because it's got a continuous point to it. But even with this, I'm still holding it in a very light process, and I'm just moving very lightly over the surface. Now, there's lots of drawing classes you can go out there. And Joe Hattie had, in the Art Center, had a brilliant one as well. It's a much more expressive, experimental, playful way of learning to draw and manipulate your materials and tools, and a different way of thinking about drawing. But they can go hand in hand with this more analytical process. One of the exercises you may have come across in classrooms will be to do a continuous line drawing where your pencil doesn't leave the surface. But if you can do this in this process where you're looking to try and figure out where things are, if you're drawing lightly, and I'm actually going over the surface of this drawing right now, but I'm not leaving many marks because the pencil is so light that I'm not really pushing pencil onto the page. So if I was looking, for example, the position of her eye, and I placed it here to begin with, I know that I can move my hand down and keep the pencil on the page until it's in the right place. So it's a bit kind of like pinning the tail on the donkey, if you don't remember that old game, but taking the blindfold like off halfway through. So you start off maybe up here, and you take the blindfold off, you know where it needs to go to, and you can move your hand to the right place. Same thing with the pencil. You're kind of guesstimating where things are. So on the right hand side of a face, we kind of know roughly where the eye is, so we kind of go to where the eye is, and then it's kind of in the center a little bit, and then you can start making marks to place where the eye would go. And you can look at other key aspects of this as well. As we zoom into Leslie's face on the camera there, you'll be able to see little spaces on either side of her iris there. And they look like little triangles. It is the sclera, the white of the eye, but what you can't see is a sort of a big arc of that white. It actually turns out to be more like little triangles, and I can assimilate those triangles in this space. So rather than drawing the roundness of the pupil there, I'm actually going to draw the similar sized, if I flip this way, that's it, there we go. I'm going to draw in a similar position of that white of the eye, and that's what I'm going to concentrate on. I'm not concentrating on the eye itself, I'm concentrating on the shape that I can see. So where we started off this portrait, and we did the mark at the top, the mark at the bottom, mark where the chin might go, angles of where the space of I drew the negative shape to get the side of the head for that angle of line. I could take it up to the corner of the page, bring it right down. That's one line. Line of the shoulder, and it comes down from the neck just there, and come across this way. I can ghost lines. I can kind of not even put my pencil on pages. Another way of doing it to assimilate kind of roughly where things are. And if you move your pencil backwards and forwards, if I flick you out a little bit so you can see this. There you go. I'm not actually putting my pencil on the page, but I can kind of ghost roughly where it goes. And when I start to feel comfortable about, if say for example I started down here and I'm headed at the wrong angle, and go, oh no, that's more of that white line going across the t-shirt there. That's not the right angle. If I'm trying to draw the top of her shoulder, it needs to go up a little bit, and it's not exactly horizontal. There's a slight incline to it. So, and I'm visually looking at the element that I'm drawing rather than trying to be drawing a shoulder. I'm drawing where that shoulder is. If that makes sense. Now, there is no dark line on her shoulder in the picture. So why would we put a line down there? Perfect timing, that camera's just gone off. Oh, okay. Let's see if I can get this fixed. I see a week off as well. For those of you who know, Andrea and I got engaged, and we had a weekend off together, and it was lovely. But a week, 1 week away from doing something you've been doing on a regular basis, suddenly you forget things that happen, like the camera switching off. So bear with us 1 second, and I will try and get this camera up again. There we go. It won't take long, I promise. Sometimes I've done this and it's taken ages. There we go. I'll just switch the camera back on this side. One of my intentions is to... Two things I'd like to do in the future. Three things. Three things I like to do. Sounds like a scene from Monty Python. So 3 things. 4 things. 3 things I'd like to do in the future. 1, get a new camera so this doesn't happen every 5 minutes. 2, I'm thinking about using a green screen as a drawing demonstration purpose. So there'll be an image in the background. I haven't quite figured out those things yet. I'm going to have to play with it a little bit. The other thing is I want to build a studio, but winter's kicking in, so I might leave that till later on next year. It's just so, this is my art studio in my home, which is okay, but it's getting a little bit claustrophobic and tight, and I like a bit more space around me. So curating your space when you're drawing is quite important. Enough of me chatting right now. That's what I want to do there. Properties. Here we go. There we go. Won't be 2 seconds now. Sorry, it's just taking a little bit long. There we are. Take that off there. Back to this. There's so many clickings of buttons. You'd be surprised. Oh, not that one. That one. Okay, done. Yay, back. The thing about the size, I thought you had mentioned getting a big drawing pad. Yep, the bigger the better for the first class. To fit the classes, yeah, it's easier to get likeness on a big pad. I think it's easier when you're starting off. It's a great question, Alex. That when you're starting off, I'm drawing quite small because I'm filling this entire page full of portraits, which I'll talk about in a second. But even if I'm drawing a small portrait as this, I will do it on a bigger piece of paper. It's so I can position it, I can move things around, and it gives me great flexibility. If I'm drawing a face that is slightly bigger than this, say for example this is an A4 size face, I don't use an A4 size piece of paper. I use a bigger piece of paper as I can, which would probably be around about an A2 size. And the reason being, again, I've got flexibility. If I draw it just a slightly bit bigger than the A4, I'm not gonna lose out. I can plan the composition of it a little bit better. It gives me flexibility to making mark making on the page. I'm not quite so restricted to the edges of the page. Often you see on smaller pads people draw the picture right to the very edge of the page, and visually looking at the picture it feels like it's a little bit squished because it's gone right to the very edges. I think this goes back to when we were kids. We were told use all of the paper because it was kind of like a very, not rare resource, but it wasn't as freely available as it maybe is today. So some of the resources we had to use every bit of them. There was no page in your sketchbook that was not covered. Every page in your sketchbook was covered and stuff. So I think we see the idea of space as waste, and it's not. Space gives you flexibility in your drawing. So I kind of suggest to people, look, draw on a larger scale. If you've got a sketchbook and you're doodling ideas, that's great, it's fine. It's quite a playful space to be in, and you can work a lot of ideas out in a sketchbook. That's what they're for. Or if you can do little studies, you know, they're grand if they're like little elements of the thing that you want to create. But if you want to work out larger issues, it's better and easier if you can use a larger pad. The type of paper I use is quite a heavyweight cartridge paper. I often use a cotton vellum as well in my artwork drawings. The cotton vellum is a very durable paper. It's a very smooth surface. I don't like paper with a texture to it because I find if I'm trying to create a smooth surface, I've got to fight the texture, where I can create the illusion of a rough texture with my pencil. Occasionally I use a rough paper if the artwork dictates it. So I kind of look about the thing that I want to create and kind of try and answer those questions for myself visually. What would I like? Do I want that kind of roughness to it? You know, is the surface texture kind of important to the artwork itself? And sometimes that's a yes, I'd use a rough paper. Sometimes it's no, and I use a smooth paper and create textures that way. So yeah, the reason why I'm doing small portraits on a large piece of paper at the moment, these are hopefully some of you guys watching today, and we've got Desiree and Alex, and Kathy's up there in the top left hand corner. I'm doing lesson now. If you're interested in being part of this, you can send through your portrait picture to my Leeboyd Artist Facebook page. Send me a message. You don't have to post it up on the page. Send me a message with it, and you can become a part of this artwork. I just wanted to create a little collection of portraits of people who have been through this process with us all the way through. Not, you don't have to be here from the very beginning. You can just, it could be your first week and you think, yeah, I would like to be part of that. Send me a picture and we can put you into this artwork. It's also a great way of discussing some of the drawing issues. Now, although I'm drawing portraits, you might be drawing landscapes or flowers, or you know, whatever it is. The drawing processes can be very, very similar, and even if your art genre is different. So I'm drawing in a very with a sense of realism. I'm trying to capture the likeness of somebody. You might want to have a little bit more expressive nature to your work. The processes are still the same, believe it or not, because when you look at this on a closer level, you can see the more expressive marks, and I've just curated those expressive marks into a more formal setting that I'm controlling whereabouts they're going, so I get the sense of a realistic image. I'm not drawing individual hairs to draw a hairline. I'm drawing the shapes and the textures of them, and that is a very much abstract, expressionisty type of artwork process. You can work on a larger scale and really play around with expressive marks, and it might be about the conversations that we could have here about more about the composition and what we're trying to do with those expressive marks. Sometimes it's about experimentation and waiting to visually see the expressive marks on the page before you're making a choice as to what works and doesn't work for you. That experimental process can lead you to a beautiful piece of abstract work or beautiful piece of expressionist work. So whatever your art genre and whatever issues you're having with your artwork, ask them and hopefully we'll get them answered for you. Is that okay? I think I hit all the points that we want to talk about. It's not too bad because I'm trying to curate what I do an awful lot of chat. It's called Art Cat because we chat about art an awful lot. But I'm trying to sort of curate down so I can get some more drawing done. because I've done this so many times before where I just caught myself on. I've been chatting for about an hour and nothing's ever really changed with the portrait. These portraits shouldn't take as long as they have done over these several weeks. It's just because we chat an awful lot as we do them. So I'm going to start to block a couple of things out. One of the things I noticed on here was the hair and whereabouts that hair comes, and I kind of mapped in a roughish line there, but I'm going to block it in as a whole area now. I've kind of got to the stage where I know where all of my shapes is, as we were discussing earlier on about positioning where the head would be, where the shoulders would be, and now I can sort of see. So we've got this lovely bit of hair that comes out. Zoom that out a little bit more. Whoop, this way. Let's get those across. Yep. So I can see this kind of part of the hairline and where it comes to the hair there, and I'm trying to put this as a mark in. I put quite a straight line. I know it's got a little bit of a wave to it. What I've noticed about curves and smooth, sort of undulating lines, excuse me, is that we get caught up on getting the perfect curve straight away, and that curve, because we're concentrating it, tends to get bigger. I've noticed whenever people are concentrating on something, they tend to draw that element bigger than it actually is, and when they stand back, they have this larger arc of a curve. Or if they're drawing an eye, the eye becomes bigger. It's because it's something subconsciously I've noticed when we're going through this drawing process, is that whenever we focus on something, we become myopic. We can only see that one thing, and we focus in on it, zoom in on it in our head, in our mind's eye, and we start to draw it that big, forgetting that the rest of the picture is there. So you always have to kind of take a step back and see it where it is in relationship to everything else. Not trying to be awkward here, but I probably misunderstood. Did you also mention getting a reference drawing the same size with A2? Well, I'd say get a good, clear reference. Often when if we get like a quick print off the computer and it's a small print on an A4 page, there's not much information you can see in there, so I try to blow the picture up to something to be either the same size. Here it's quite handy because it's basically like an A5 size going straight across to an A5 size drawing. I can do that with an A4. It gets a little bit more difficult when you start getting A2 sizes of drawing. But what you can do is break the picture down. If you're drawing, say, a large scale A1 piece of paper with lots of different elements into it, you don't have to have the big A1 piece of photographic reference. You can break it down into different sections if you want, and have those and just draw those sections out, plot them out together, do all the stages together that way. Or you can scale it up. You know, you can have it on an A4 page, you're working on a A2 page. It's just doubling it would be A3, doubling it again would be A2. So if I made a mark for the top of the head, talking about measurements or mapping things out, you don't necessarily have to do it with a ruler. And I would say, to begin with, don't do it with a ruler. Do it with a piece of string, or do it with the edge of a piece of paper. So, for example, if I wanted to map her head out, I could literally put my piece of paper up against the edge there. That's where the top of her head is. That's where her chin is. That's where the bottom of the top is. That's where her mouth comes. That's where her nose goes. And that's where her eye is. And I can move that across to my page. And those things can kind of line up. Now, I would say make fewer marks to begin with. Just do the top of the head and the bottom of the head. That'll be enough to move across and map first. If you do lots and lots and lots and lots of marks in there, you'll move it across and can't remember what these marks represent. As you do more of it, this is basically a very beginner's way of training your eye to see where things are. As you go on with it, you don't have to do that process quite so much. You can start to trust your eye and occasionally map things across. You've seen people I'm sure you've seen people. When you see people playing an artist on TV, they've got the hand out and they're kind of measuring like this with their thumb, and nobody ever really explains what that is. And it's a way of measuring, because your arm is a constant length if you've got it out straight. That's the key, keeping your arm straight. And they'll have a pencil, if I can get you in the shot there, and I'll have a pencil, and I can mark, putting the pencil, the top of my pencil at the top of my head, and my thumb at the bottom of my chin, there, and then I can move that across to my page, and I can map out, well, that's the top of my head, and that's the bottom of my chin on the page. So my head becomes this big on my page. I'm not drawing myself life size, but then I can use the same measurement, arm length away, to go, okay, how wide is my head? And I can go, my head is that wide, and I'm using my thumb as a guide to kind of map to where my thumb meets the side of my head there, and then I move that back to my page, and I've got the width, and I get the proportions that way if I'm drawing from life. You can do it with a piece of string, you can do it with a pencil, something like that, where you're taking the measurement from, say, the width of her face there. So again, putting the edge of the pencil on the page, moving my finger up to where her cheek is, and I get the proportion of the width of her face. I can move that across, and I can just double check the width of the face on there, side of the cheek, side of the other cheek. And if it's too small, I can make a mark and move the line back out, because I'm drawing lightly. Remember, there's a flexibility to the drawing to begin with. I might not get it in the right place straight away. I might need to widen it or narrow it. I like a drawing to be flexible. So no, you don't necessarily need a big A2 photo. You can get A2 photos and A2 printers and things like that. It'll cost you a bit more money to print them out. If you go into printers to get it done, you're going to need a bigger board to draw it on. So sometimes size is a restriction when we're starting off, where I think this A2 page is a decent size, because it gives you scope to draw something quite comfortably, which is about an A3, or you know, if you are going to map something out, it might be just slightly smaller than the A2 size itself. If you've got a larger project, I'd like to hear about it. That would be quite interesting. I think the largest thing I've done on a board is about 6 foot by 8 foot drawing, and that was quite a challenge. And it's something I'd actually like to go back to, is to do something on a larger scale. But again, sometimes we're curtailed by space. I'm curtailed by space within my studio. Sometimes, you know, if you were to get a 6 foot by 8 foot panel and try and bring that into the studio, you'd have to shift the studio around to accommodate the drawing. There might not be enough space to draw it. So sometimes the size of the scale of your drawings are restricted by your space where you can do it. Kitchen table, on your knee in front of the coffee table, you know, watching a bit of Sky Arts, you know, whatever it is. It might be you're restricted to that, but no, you don't necessarily need a large photograph for that. Good morning, Angela. Good to see you. I know you're down in Dublin, and you've got the lockdown there as well as we've got up here. Say if you missed it this morning, we were supposed to have a live drawing class in the Arts Centre this morning. They've all got cancelled because of COVID, so I think that's going to carry on until, or so far it's going to carry on until the 2nd of November. I think that's when we're back in. I think that's the Monday. But yeah, we'll just have to wait and see, because who can plan too far ahead in the future? The only thing we can plan on, or I can plan on, is, because I'm in lockdown at home, is to do this online. Just a quick question: are any of you going to do the Sky Arts Portrait Artist of the Year challenge on Sunday morning at 10 o'clock? Type in if you are, because we can say hello to each other when we set up. They always have like a bit of a chat bar that kind of flips by, because they do it live on Facebook. So it might be quite interesting. I'm thinking possibly of just broadcasting what I'm going to do as I'm painting. I'm not going to talk, I'm just going to carry on with my work. So I think the lady sitting tomorrow is the Radio 1 DJ Annie Mac, which would be a great chance. She's got great curly hair. So it'll be interesting to see how it's set up. Again, people are just literally set at home with their video cameras and things like that, so they'll be sat in their own environment. So where you curate a portrait, you can ask your sitter to emphasize certain elements. So if it's about them as a person, you might curate certain things like the lighting or the positioning, or you might emphasize something in the composition. When we work on the picture tomorrow, the elements that we're going to have visually to draw from will be that conversation that she's going to be having live with the judges, basically. You can do screenshots at any point during that 4-hour period to draw from, and you can use your own imagination to embellish it and add elements to it. But for a source of inspiration, you might be curated by what they've set up. And I think that's always a challenge. Sometimes when you don't have that control, you have to go with the flow of what's there in front of you. That's an exciting challenge as well, and it makes you adapt and push yourself a little bit. And I quite enjoyed that when it was on last time. So I wasn't trying to get too clever by having a process of doing things too much. I did notice a lot of the portraits to begin with were kind of like face on and straight on, because most of the conversations were of them talking to the camera. Occasionally you could get them to, when they were musing about something or thinking about something, they would look off to one side, and there was elements of Noel Fielding's, which is sitting behind me, which was quite fun because he put his paintings in the background. So, and because he's an artist, I think he thought about that. Bernadette Evaristo, writer, and she had her bookcase behind her, because that curation of experience and knowledge, and her artwork is her writing. Those books were in an interesting element to it. So yeah, have a go. It'd be good to see. Also, you can still apply. You can actually apply for the real show. And now I know some of you might go, "Oh, I'm not going to do that." I think some of you can do. You can certainly do a drawing better than I did when I was on it, because my drawing was bad for my level and my level of expertise. I didn't do particularly well, but that's not to say that you couldn't do it as well. Have a go. Even have a go at doing a self-portrait. Even the process. And if you're not interested in applying for the show, doing a self-portrait allows you to reflect on your drawing process a little bit. So you're not trying to not upset somebody by doing a portrait that doesn't quite look like them. If you're doing it for yourself, and you can use your self-portrait as a great learning tool. And if you have a look back at Rembrandt, he would have used portraits to almost do it like a showcase. It was like a show reel of the styles of things that he could do. So when his clients came around, and they could see all the different portraits that he would paint of himself on the wall, and go, I like the colours he used in that one, or I like the lighting conditions he used in that one, or I like the fashion you were wearing in that one, something to talk about. He would maybe use those to curate what he was going to do for a client for a commission. So yeah, that was a long good morning, wasn't it, Angela? You give it a crack. Great, Alex. That's what I like to see. So yeah, I'm going to jump online. Well, I think it starts at 10. I might get myself kind of set up. So if you see a live broadcast going, I say I'm not going to necessarily chat like I'm chatting today. I'm literally going to hook it up and watch it. So you'll be watching me do it live, but I'm going to try and do it so you can see the live portrait happen. And go from there. I'll try and do it in 4 hours. I might do it. I don't, because I haven't done the artwork yet, and I haven't seen the setup and the process. I don't know. I'd like to think that I can do it in 4 hours, but sometimes these things just take a little bit extra. The new Sky Arts Portrait Art of the Year is on Wednesday night on Sky, and I think you can now. You don't have to necessarily have Sky to watch it. You can watch it on live like the normal TV. Um, Interesting processes again, and how people layer their work down, how they set themselves up, and they're all. And what I found is it kind of expresses people's personalities as well. Um, is to the very considered and analytical and thoughtful processes to somebody who's a bit more exuberant, and their exuberance comes out in their brushstrokes. And it's very hard to say specifically how people are going to do on the show, because some people take a time to process their visually, to check backwards and forwards, to go away, to come back. I often say to people, look, you don't have to do it all at once. You can go away. You can go and work on something else. You can go for a cup of tea, go for a walk, leave it till the next day and come back and see where your artwork is. And that, for a lot of people, is the process. So to suddenly condense that down to 4 hours, that's the big challenge. And I think where some do particularly well, some struggle, but it doesn't mean to say they're not as good at artists. I think some artists have just a different way of working or processing. What is interesting to see is the quality in their work. And when you look at brush strokes and pencil marks and how they mix paint, that tells you a lot about them as an artist, how they set it up, how they start to work it all out. And it's a case of trying all these different things. Got people in the background. Oh, the door's open. Sorry, there. Close that door. That was a cat trying to kick the door in. Yeah, what's interesting is to watch their processes as well, and see how they kind of mix paint, how they have paint loaded on a brush, how they kind of you can see them almost thinking as their brush is on the page and they're moving it around. You can see almost their thought processes. Really interesting. You'd like to join the Portrait Artist program, but I'm not able. Oh, so we'll just be a spectator this time. Looking forward to seeing all the efforts. Yeah, if we look at Instagram through the week, you'll see everybody posting up a hashtag MYPAOTW. Forget that out. I have to rethink about it. It's like dyslexic, so think about it, how the anagram works. My Portrait Artist of the Week. They put the hashtag on, and they basically attach it to a page that's got all of the portraits with all of that hashtag on. Really, really interesting to see them suddenly all pop up. And yeah, you should curate your own curatorial taste. Curatorial taste? I think that's a word. What interests you visually? What do you like? What did you like the most? What didn't inspire you the most when you're looking at people's portraits? Now, it's not to say it's a bad portrait. It might not just be something that connects with you. If you can start to see what connects with you, you can start to use those things in your artwork. What is it you like about that? Take the element from it and try it out yourself. Doesn't mean to say you're copying the artist. You might look at the simple structure of the picture. You might look at the simplicity of the colours that they used. You might look at the refinement of their brushwork or the execution of the likeness. All of these different elements, and they might give you a guide in which to kind of set your stall out as to whereabouts you'd like your artwork to go. If you know where you want to go, it gets a lot easier, because art in general is just massive. There's lots of different ways of doing things. So yeah, I'm so shame you can't join the program. Is that because of the internet, or you don't have Sky? Because I think if you can watch it, if you're watching here with us online, if you go to Sky, maybe not on Facebook, maybe that's it, but if you go to their Sky TV Facebook page, it's on there, on live at 10 tomorrow. I think they were going to show it on Sky TV at the same time. I hope so, because it makes it for, if you're not interested necessarily in having a go yourself, it's still an interesting program to listen to the conversations of why artists do what they do and why they do it. That's why I kind of will say, if you can, listen to a few art book podcasts, and you get to listen how artists think and how that affects the quality of their work. and why, why they do their paintings in a specific manner, or what interests them visually or challenges them, what they think about the art world in general. Can be quite interesting as well. It can make you reflect. You don't necessarily always have to agree with people, but they can get you to think in a certain way about your own artwork in a reflective process, where you get to challenge yourself by asking yourself the same questions. Or if you're disagreeing with the thoughts or position of an artist and why they do their artwork, and you go, no, it's not what I like, and I don't like it that way because of blah blah blah, it still helps you curate your art stall, if you like, about what it is you like to do. So your opinion is yours, but I'd stay open to influence. It's my biggest thing as advice to starting out in art, and even sort of keeping that with you through your art career, or your art life. It doesn't necessarily have to be about work. I've lost a train of thought there. I got there's two things. I've got my voice in my head as just to make sure the feed's going on, but I get like a delay, and sometimes I hear what I've just said back and going, does that make sense? Yes, it does make sense. So I'm going to move these earphones off because I was just getting distracted by my own head, my own talking. Mimi has followed me. It's about an hour ago, so hopefully Mimi, you're with us in the room as well. You can say hello in the chat room. It's on YouTube there on the right hand side, the live chat bar. You're quite welcome to say hello. There's a few people that's followed as well, so if you want to, you're quite welcome to. You can share this on your Facebook feeds, or on your Twitter pages as well, and invite people that you know to come along if they're wanting to kind of sit down with a bunch of people who want to draw every Saturday morning. They're more than welcome. You can also subscribe to the channel as well. Hit the subscribe button and you'll just get updated when I go live. I tend to go live on a regular basis, but it just means that if, like tomorrow, I'm going to do a live cast of me doing the artwork that has been on live on the TV. It's almost too much live, isn't it? You'd get a notification, so subscribing to the channel works that way as well. As this develops, we might be doing specific things. I might be doing little videos specifically for topics and putting those up separately to the live broadcasts, and you'd get notifications of them as well. I did one so far. It was my very first video, and it's a little bit clunky, but it's about how to sharpen a pencil. And I know that sounds really boring and basic, but I get asked an awful lot, can you sharpen my pencil? Because I do them to a very long tapered point, just for the simple process of drawing. So this one's a bit blunt, but again, it's a lot easier to draw with a long tapered piece of graphite, Tismol graphite. So I did a little video, so you're quite welcome to watch that as well. So apart from all of that, how's your week been? I know, so possibly if you're in the UK, in Northern Ireland and down south as well, I know you're having a lot of lockdown restrictions as well. I hope it hasn't been too frustrating for you. When you think back to how things were when it first kicked off and the big lockdown was on, nobody was going out at all. That was really tough. So in comparison, it doesn't feel as bad, but it's still frustrating, especially when we were just getting that little sense of getting back to some sort of weird normality. To have that kind of whipped away again feels like it's a failure, but I think it's just the nature of this virus that we kind of have to get used to, that it may not have gone away so much, and it will be peaks and troughs, and this might be the kind of regular balance of things until the vaccine's found and given out to as many people as possible. Hopefully you're all okay and staying safe. Whatever your position is about wearing masks or not wearing masks, to wear one's not really much of an issue, really. And some people raging against the machine and being afraid of being controlled by the state, whatever. But it's a mask at the end of the day, and it's a virus. And if one of your friends or family members got very, very sick because of it, you would soon maybe change your mind about wearing a flipping mask. It's not a big thing. Um, washing your hands. I was watching a comedy show the other day, and they said it's basically something we should have been doing anyway, which is true. You know, um, to limit the spread of germs and all the rest of it, washing your hands is not a big thing. Uh, so if you have to go in a shop and you have to put a bit of sanitizer on your hands as you go through the doors, again, is that a big challenge? Is that a big thing when you look through to the past of what maybe our folks or grandparents may have gone through in the Second World War? Is washing your hands and wearing a mask a big thing? Obviously, some people have health conditions and reasons why they can't wear a mask. That's fine. That's understandable. But if you can wear a mask, why not? It's not gonna be a hardship on your life, really. I know it's frustrating. It's frustrating for everybody, but this is a weird, weird virus, and just let's hope that things can calm down a little bit sooner. We can literally get back to normality. It's having a huge effect on everybody, especially in businesses and people's working lives, and it's affecting people's jobs. But I think if we can restrict the spread or slow it down at least, then we can get back to a little bit of normality. It's not to say they won't flare up again. We'll have to do this. It might become a working pattern, and that might allow businesses to adjust and adapt. I think communication about what people are going to do next as a governance should get a little bit better. I think we get a little bit more time to plan rather than we've just been dropped on it one day to say suddenly you've all got to stay at home or you've all got to do this. I think that's been the biggest frustration for people. I don't know. Just my personal views. It's nothing artistic. It's supposed to be art chat, so I won't go into the political bit of it. But as it affected our drawing classes this week, I just thought I'd mention it is frustrating. Very frustrating for the guys at the Arts Centre as well. They've been working hard to kind of get this up and running because they're on furlough. They're working 1 week on, 1 week off, and there's the guys sometimes that you deal with on the phone to book a class or when you arrive at classes. They're not the guys making the big decisions. They're the guys that are delivering the classes, and I take my hat off to them because they've got a real passion for it. They really do care, and they really do want to deliver something that's fun and people enjoy, and that's what they're there about. They want to expand people's experience of art and things like that, and suddenly they can't do it, and that must be so frustrating. That is your job and you're not allowed to do it. So I thank the guys at the Arts Centre. It really does mean a lot that they've tried to get the live drawing classes up. Hopefully we will be back at some stage, and things can get back to a little bit of normality. And who knows, I mean, there was some talk of trying to find a way around COVID and with doing the classes, because although this is great, I know there's limitations to it. I know that when I'm in a class, I can observe you drawing and see something straight away in your drawing and come across to you and go, have you tried this, try that, blah, blah, blah. You might feel a bit more comfortable talking to me one-to-one basis about your artwork. I can talk to you all collectively in general, a bit like this, about your artwork and what we're going to do. But there's a connection in a classroom environment where you are one-to-one with somebody, which is much more conducive to you learning as an individual. But you've also got individuals around you, all learning at the same time, all being able to help themselves. And I do find with drawing classes, real-life classes, your drawing experience and learning accelerate quite quick. Not to say that this is no good. I still think there's value in doing online. That's why I'm doing it, online drawing classes. But the more you communicate, the more you'll probably get out of it. So even if it's not with me, even with each other, a question you've got over a pencil, it could be literally, where did you get your pencils from? I can't get any paper from my local shops because they're all shut. where's a good place to get them online, what's a good price, what's a good quality, all those types of things. You can have the conversation there, we can chat about them. Has anybody got any good deals on the internet recently? Share them out. Let us know where they are. Who's got a good offer on papers. I mean, I went to the local art shop that we have here called Art and Home. The lovely Emma and John, because somebody very kindly got me some vouchers and I was able to use them and prep some materials for sort of a project we've been working on for some time, but also I'm going to use them for the Sky Arts portrait thing. Yeah, some good deals in the art shop there, and they're always running little deals on their Instagram page to let people know what's on offer and things like that. So if you do know of anything, pop them up here. No drama, just doing an online painting course with Lewis Smith, Belfast. Realist Academy in Manchester. Class, quite full on with plenty of hours of homework. That is brilliant, Angela. That's great to know. So I realise now why you can't do it, because you're going to be busy doing other stuff. I get it. Maybe you can put it on in the background as you're doing your homework. Yeah, that's really, really good. So the Realist Academy in Manchester. Tell us more about that. I know there was one in London, and there was one up in Glasgow, I think it was, that I saw last time. I haven't heard about the one in Manchester. I have to check that out as well. Sorry for my phone pinging away there. I thought I had that switched off. So is your course sort of is it a long course? Is it over like a year or several weeks, or are you kind of signing up week by week? How does it work? I have always wanted to go to an atelier and just have that pure luxury of just time to spend. And they're very hard working atelier classes, and they treat it very much as I've seen some of the ones in Italy. I saw a brilliant one in Sweden as well. It looked like everybody was together working really hard. There was a real camaraderie between the students, and a very clinical, analytical, but supportive process in the teaching style as well. They were going in to do this, and there was no deviation and trying other stuff out and experimental. It was a case of, no, this is what we're doing, get this done, and this is the standard it needs to be, and this is how we're going to get you there. It seemed to be very much a process, methodical, analytical way of creating, and I think the skills that people have are amazing coming out. I think the poetry side, it needs to catch up a little bit. I've seen a couple of academies that are starting to tackle that one, and the work that they're producing is phenomenal, because it isn't just about the realism, it's about the soul of the art as well, the actual poetry side of the art. But to get to the poetry side, you need to be able to express it, so they learn techniques, and that's an interesting process. Just that it's kind of like slowing down and really work in areas to get the rendering perfect, but to understand space and volume. So glad it's going well. But yeah, it does take a lot of time. It does take an awful lot of effort, but it pays off in bucket loads, because then you can really play with it. It becomes a tool for you to use to let your imagination flow, and to then allow yourself to put things out absolutely anywhere. An awful lot of games design companies, and animation companies use people who've been to the atelier process because they understand form and space, and they can manipulate it with a sense of realism, to allow their characters to come alive. That's really interesting to see over the last, I'd say, 15 years, where it's very sort of what people would class as a childish pursuit, wanting to become a cartoonist, or wanting to play with computer games and things like that, where it's become a big business, and where the skills of the atelier students come to the fore is how do you render a surreal world that looks like it could exist. And a lot of the techniques people would learn through the atelier process of understanding what form and light and texture and colour and how these things work and tone values, etc., all combined can give you a reality that doesn't exist. That's interesting. And it suddenly becomes a very lucrative, valuable aspect, not just for artists to produce solely their own work, but as a career, to facilitate a career in an industry is interesting. Because it used to be that, what is art good for? And you go, well, if you look at every movie that's been produced in the last, I don't know, 15 years or so, all has a part of element of CGI in it. Manipulation of light and texture and colours. And that level of understanding what those things do on a visual level comes from a lot of people who've been through that atelier process. Obviously you need to learn the computer programs as well at a late stage, but you need to understand that first. It doesn't matter how good you are at computers, it's not going to do it for you. You've got to be able to see it. You're doing homework now while listening to TV. Okay, it's a 3-hour class. Okay, twice a week. Good. Till July 21. Okay, cool. With at least the same amount of hours of homework. Well, that is. We don't mind me asking how much was it to do? It might sounds like something I might want to do myself. There's no harm. You find an awful lot of people will go around and be a professional artist and go to an atelier, and then go to another atelier in another part of the world, and then another atelier in another part of the world, or go for a 2-week session in somewhere else and work with somebody in an atelier process. The atelier process is basically an apprenticeship, an apprentice, a master and apprentice. That's that kind of learning process where you go and work with different artists who have different values to their work, and you learn and absorb from them, and you start to apply it into your work. And you can chop and change. You can decide what you're best suited to. So I don't know if you've ever heard of a guy called Odd Nerdrum. An awful lot of people will go and work with Odd Nerdrum. No, he doesn't necessarily run an atelier. He's quite an eccentric character and has a space for 1 or 2 students. People go up and work with him for a while, and you can almost see his students appear on the art scene, and you kind of go, flavour of Odd Nerdrum to it, and you find out that they've studied with him, but it's not quite like Odd Nerdrum's work. They've added something else to it, and there's a flavour or a little bit of a styling to their work which has an influence from Odd Nerdrum. This is how art history has moved on, decade, century after century, where genres don't just stop and start, they slowly evolve into something, and then it slowly evolve into something else, and artists will start working in a new way of doing something, a new flavour, and start experimenting a little bit more. But their influence comes from a history of art that's gone before them, something that they can't escape, and shouldn't necessarily need to. Yeah, fair play, Angela. It's pretty full on. It is, and I dare say those 3 hours still disappear really quick. It's not a case of, oh God, I've got 3 hours of this homework to do. It's not like, for me, if somebody give me 3 hours of doing sums, I would be bored. And some people love maths, and if that's your thing, great. I'm not criticising you, but if it's something you love doing, that is just going to be your joy time to create and paint. If it's frustrating because things aren't quite going right for you, that's okay. Again, use it as you're learning. You are a student. You are learning. That you are allowed to make mistakes. and learn from them so you can rectify them and build levels of understanding. That's the point of it. That's the point of learning. People are very afraid of making a little error now and again in their work. Not now and again, just in general. Where is if you're trying something out and it doesn't quite work, you learn from it. You learn not to do it again, or you learn to push it to the point before it breaks. That type of thing, you know what I mean? I'm just toning this neck down. So I'm working on now as I'm chatting to you guys. You can see some of the structures I've started to put in place in this, and shapes, and where they move across the neck. You see highlights and dark bits in here. I don't try and draw this all flat, because it's not. You can sort of see this darker element coming down here and this dark bit coming across there. They've got this lighter triangle bit coming in here, and a lighter bit here, and a lighter bit there, and a darker bit there. All these lights and darks are the structures and movement across the shapes of the necks, and those I'm still putting in, hopefully in proportion to the rest of the face. I can see that this side is just slightly darker, but there's a little bit of a shadow that comes across here. There's lots of tonal aspects on the face of Leslie that is very, very similar, and little elements that might just be slightly darker there, but then lighter across the cheek, slightly darker on the edge there, and then it kind of slowly fades out into the face. So I'm always looking at edges of things, or the edges of a shadow even. It doesn't have to be a thing. Has it got a hard edge? It's very crisp. Or has it got a softer, fluffier, diffused edge that kind of flows into something else? You know, when I'm looking at the shadows on the neck underneath here, they're very diffused, but the edge here is quite sharp. I'm not going to put in the black plant behind her shoulder. I think it's just kind of taken away. It looks like something sitting on her shoulder if I was to draw that in, so I'm going to remove that. But then I've got the contrast between this darker element of her shoulder here and how that breaks on the edge here. What I have noticed is where her earring is, so I might want to start to map that in a little bit. I think that, yeah, that comes down as well, that edge of her cheek. So I've got the edge of the cheek and the top of that shoulder are the same kind of density of darkness, and then both from that point they kind of slowly get lighter as they break across the shape of the shoulder. I can sort of see the shape there on the side of her jaw before it reaches her earlobe there, and the ear itself disappears as a tone right into the face. There is no line. This line disappears. There is no line here. Can't see it. But then we can start mapping in the shape of this earring. What I can do is have a look at that highlight. Wait, zoom in. Maybe that'll help a little bit. Yeah. I'm just looking at this little tiny light shape here for the top part of the earring. It almost touches, but not quite, the side of the face, and it stops. The bottom of it stops almost in line with the bottom of the lip, which is about there, before it starts to curve back up again to the ring element of the earring. So I start to build up that teardrop shape out of placement. That's very much similar to how we did the entire placement of the head. The process isn't different. I'm not trying to draw an earring, I'm just following the process. And following the process is a lot easier than trying to draw a thing that I've never seen, never touched, never felt, never understood its form. I'm literally using it as from a visual reference, so I've got to break it down to simple forms. And also I can't see too much detail on this, but what I can see is very dark bits and little light bits. It gives me a suggestion of it's a metallic surface, and it's quite textured. It's dark at the top there. But if you notice, my head is moving backwards and forwards because I'm trying to understand where the difference is between my drawing and the actual image. You can see it might be slightly thinner than I've got it, so manipulate that edge, bring it in a little bit narrower there. So I get the sense of where the earring is relatively quickly, but without labouring the issue, by just concentrating on the basics of shape and form. Your homework takes you much longer, as I seem to be a slow learner. Being a slow learner is not a bad thing, so no more sad faces. See the little emote there that you put beside it. I know it might feel frustrating, and the tendency is for students to judge themselves against other students. Don't. This is your learning. You're okay to take your time, because the process that you're learning doesn't stop even when these classes are over that the atelier people are giving you. It's a process that you keep practicing throughout your artwork, and you'll naturally get quicker at something if you do it over a period of time, because you'll start to feel comfortable with it. You'll start to be able to push it a little bit further. You'll start to experiment a little bit more. You'll be able to control the mediums you have with a greater sense of confidence, because have literally just practiced. So yeah, although it might feel much longer at the moment, Angela, don't worry about the time. Taking your time to learn it is the key. Not rushing through it, not thinking I have to get this done in 3 hours. Do it until it gets done. Enjoy the process of it. The time will disappear anyway, so you're not thinking about the time. You're just concentrating on the elements that you're concentrating on. If you start thinking about the clock, you'll take your mind off your artwork, and it will slow you down. If that makes sense. So I know it can be hard juggling, doing all that with real life as well, but you will learn an awful lot. So don't again judge yourself against other people in the class and where you sit in the scale of things. You know, it's not Ofsted. It's a class that you signed up to do because you want to learn something, and you are learning it, and you're learning it at your rate, and you can take that influence and guidance from the tutor to help you with your next homework, and to help you progress that way. And you'll be able to start to see yourself where your strengths and weaknesses are in your drawings, so you know to do smaller practice studies on the elements that need help, and where areas that you are becoming quite confident at is where you can start to explore and experiment to progress them as well. So everybody's in the same boat. Everybody's still pushing their artwork forward, and a teacher like myself, when I'm teaching, I'm learning each time I do this how to do it a little bit better, how to communicate a little bit better, how to talk to different people with different thought processes and learning styles in a different way that best suits them. The guys, I'm sure, will have a course content in which to deliver, and have to follow kind of a stricter regime of that, because they have to get through certain amounts each week to get to the next stage, so they get the course finished. But that's not the end of learning. You can still go back to week after you finish the entire course. You could go back to week 1 and do the entire thing again, and move your artwork on a hell of a lot further forward. And that might sound silly, but you're going, I've already learned it. What do I need to do that again? Sometimes the repetition of doing something is the thing that pushes you further forward. So don't worry. If I'm just drawing portraits, hopefully eventually I'll get better at doing portraits. Not I've done a portrait now, I should be better at doing all portraits. That's not the case. You have to do, each face is different. Each portrait is different. Um, so hopefully you're taking some comfort out of that, even if it's just me whittling on your ear. Enjoy what you're doing right now. Don't feel frustrated. Just enjoy the time, and even if you're just doing it for 3 hours today, hopefully these 2 hours helped you get through it. That's another good reason for using podcasts. So check out a couple. There's one by John Dalton called Gently Does It, which I've talked about a bit before, and there is The Jealous Curator. Got some really good podcasts on there. There's quite a few of pod people. Maybe that's the thing. There's quite a few of them out there. So again, if you've got any suggestions of good ones that you have come across, please feel free to share them. I was kind of really looking forward to seeing the guys this morning at the Arts Centre, because it wasn't until yesterday afternoon that we found out that it was kind of cancelled this morning, and it was their first week after all of this time to get back. I did Monday, Saturday class didn't happen, and it's really frustrating, and it may get people annoyed at not doing their artwork. Because what's the point? Can't get my classes, so what's the point of doing it? I'd say, look, the art classes is like a facilitator to help you learn. If you want to draw, you will draw, but getting the time and space away to do the drawing is sometimes the thing that people love and enjoy the most, because they are a way to do a thing, to draw for 2 hours. Whereas if they're at home, there can be distractions. You're available to other people, and you can't get the peace and quiet to do it. And I get it; it's tough. But at least, hopefully, in some way, this might help. You're going, oh no, Lee's drawing class is on, and I'm attending them for a reason, and I'm going to have these 2 hours to do because I would have been at them anyway. So leave me alone for 2 hours, and then I'm free, and then I'm yours to I've got a list of jobs as well. I've got to put a new door on. What else have I got to do? I've got to get the nettles sorted out in the back garden. Want to do a bit of painting in the hallway. So I've got jobs, a list of jobs to do, but compromise and chatting about it. We've gone like, I need to do this today. I was like, oh yeah, that's fine, cool. We managed to go out yesterday for a lovely afternoon together. So curating your time and space is an important thing, because it just helps formalize like when you've got the time to do it. If time is tight, you kind of have to be a bit methodical and maybe plan it out, just to give you a sense of not necessarily control, but you've got a peace of mind as to when you're going to do it. You're not worried about it anymore because you know when you're going to do it. You're not having to think about it. There's no guilt involved because you know you're going to go and do it. It's that type of thing. So I'm drawing relatively lightly still, but as you can see, some of the marks and lines on this sketch are getting more and more darker. So I'm going over similar areas over and over again. Things like the eyes and some of the elements of these eyes pulling together. I know this eye on the right hand side is slightly needs to be and left hand side need to be darker than I've got it right now. Thank you for the advice, Lee. It makes a lot of sense, so I'll try to take it all on board. Good. Repeating the course all over again horrifies me at the moment. I did get what you mean. Good. I'm glad you get what I mean. It's not scaring the life out of you too much. Yeah, I don't mean that as soon as you stop you have to start again. You have to kind of take a step back from it so you can take it in. Give yourself time to assimilate the knowledge that you've learned. One of the things I picked up from this is something I learnt when I was in sixth form. I forget where I learnt it from. I think I was listening to a teacher talk about it. But I was always interested in his classes and how when he would give his classes, I always felt like I got the information a lot easier, and I couldn't figure out why in his classes I was picking stuff up, but in other classes I wasn't doing quite so well in. And I was chatting about it one day, and he said, look, it's about how people learn. He goes, I could give you a lecture for 2 hours on something and you won't pick it all up. And in a week's time, you'll remember less than 10% of what I've said. So basically 2 hours, 10% of 2 hours, 20 minutes, whatever it is. I don't even know what 10% of 2 hours is. But you'd learn 20 minutes out of 2 hours. Because I wasted an hour and 40 minutes of yours and my life. And I don't want to do that. And I'm going, yeah, that's great. He goes, so I know you're not going to pick up 100% of what I say, but I want you to remember the salient points. So he was making us go back and run through bullet points of the class. Not straight away, just about 20 minutes after, just run through a list of them. And what it does is it sparks your memory. It puts it into your long-term memory. It kind of, you've just had the experience and then you don't review it. You're going to forget a lot of the experience. You just had the experience, leave it, go for coffee, go for a break. 20 minutes later, run through the bullet points of what that class was, and your memory is lengthened, goes in long-term memory, and it kind of sticks with you a little bit more. One of the things that in this classroom that kind of stuck with me is that I've started to pick out and put in. Oh, what have we got here then? It doesn't look like the photo, not very good. Show sucks. Lovely. So this, sadly, J-Dub, thanks for joining, but I'm gonna have to ask you if you can maybe just jog on to another one, because obviously you're enjoying yourself, but there we are. That's probably the best thing to do, isn't it? There you go. Chad, that was the first what do they call them? Trolls? Is he a troll? That I've ever had on YouTube. They're everywhere. None to get really upset about. They're easily deleted. So yeah, right. So I'll get this photograph up. Sorry, it was right in the middle of me trying to figure out this camera as well. So I'd be more happy if it was a more constructive criticism. I don't care if you think it sucks or not. You know what it sucks about it, and I might be able to fix it. Andrea is down here by my right, as you can see the top of her head. Say hello to everybody. So I got my first. This is Andrea, by the way. This is the lovely lady who is my fiance. I got my first troll.
Oh, no way.
Oh, yeah, way.
How rude. Wow.
I know. Oh, I don't know. Just popped up. So.
Well, you're gonna get that.
I am gonna get
They're
that.
everywhere.
They are everywhere.
Sorry, I'm not looking for my faces.
So those of you who don't know who Andrea is, that's who I've been talking about. So I've been. Both my camera went off. I got a troll, and you came in all at the same time.
You've got a kitten.
And now I've got a kitten. Right. Okay. Wait. I'm trying to get this back up to work again. There it is. It's remote. There it is. Right. Right. Got the camera back. Think I got rid of the troll, and Andrea's now gone, and so is the cat. There we go. This is how to learn to juggle as well as draw. So yeah, sorry if that upset anybody. You know, it's one of those things. It is just life, isn't it, with trolls and stuff these days. Pointless I just feel quite sorry for him. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I do feel really sorry for them. What sad, lonely lives they must have to really get any enjoyment out of that. I would really feel passionately sorry for them. Maybe they need a help group or something, helpline. But anyway, I don't mind criticism. Um, if people have got something to say and go that doesn't look like her, I go okay. Whereabouts have I not got this right? Andrea is very good, who you just saw crawling on the floor there, just trying to get something out of the printer without being seen. Um, she can come into a room and she can see something in my artwork which is just off, and I trust her opinion. And she'll go, nose is a bit long, and she will walk away. And I'll look at it and go, oh God, she's right. And I will be blind to the drawing itself. I'm the one drawing it. I've the one been staring at it for hours and hours and hours. But there'll be an element that is just slightly off that I haven't quite seen, and it could be throwing other things off. So my perspective of my drawing has maybe got a little bit skewed. And there was another pair of eyes looking at your drawing or painting can be immensely valuable. So a little bit of criticism is never a bad thing. They want to push things forward, move things on a little bit. Awesome, that's great. But I have had really criticisms like before where people have gone, that's not very good. And I've wanted to engage with them to say, oh, that's fine. What is it you don't like about it? And they're going, it's just not very good. And it's kind of pointless. It's just them expressing their opinion. That's fine. I can just leave it there then, because it's just your opinion on something. I don't have to take it home with me and think about it. But if somebody's got anything concrete to say, that I'm interested in, because that helps me move forward as an artist. So it's something to kind of bear in mind. When family members don't take it personally. I know it's hard to not feel personal about your work if you put a lot of time and effort and emotion into something that they might just not get. I'm very into a secret with my artwork, my manimal stuff. Not everybody gets it, and I don't try to assume that everybody will. What I have to do is please myself artistically first and connect with the people who like the work. But listen, I always keep my ear out for how people react to certain things. So I'm not changing my artwork for anybody. I change it for myself. But there'll be elements in there that will help me communicate better as an artist. So I just don't get what it's about. Okay, what is it like? What do you see in it? And I ask them a question, and then they might project something else onto an artwork. And I'll try and see it through their eyes. I'll try and see how their thought processes work, and reflect on it. Now, I can make it, if it's relevant, I can do something about it. But if it's not relevant, I kind of have to then kind of go, okay, that's all what it is. It's just somebody else's opinion on my artwork. It's not a visual truth that I'm trying to create, and they're seeing something completely different because I'm getting it wrong. I'm not communicating that at all. I'm getting it wrong. It's not carrying my message or the sentiment or artistic intention through the artwork. Not everybody will get your artwork, but if you are finding people are getting your artwork and other people just don't like it because it upsets them, or they have to write a message to say so that they don't like it, that's fine. I was listening to a guy doing podcasts, and he said if everybody loves what you're doing online, you're probably doing it wrong. Because there will be people out there who will have a difference of opinion and should feel comfortable about saying it. So I don't mind criticism. I do mind it when it becomes abusive. So that's why I just switch it off, because it's pointless. And that's why I feel a bit sorry for them that they're obviously not getting out there very much. I've just noticed in the corner there, even chatting about trolls and things, the shape and angle of this little white strip that goes across the top. It's quite interesting as a shape. You know, I'm looking at this shape, so tone is a little bit darker, and what I can do is when I start to fill in this tone, do it to the depth and darkness of that line, so the line starts to disappear into the shape. You see that? So as I start to build in this whole shape, I'm just layering the pencil, the graphite down. So initially put that line in to tell us where the edge of the shoulder was going across the top there. But as I started to tone it in and start to build up some of those little bits of shadow which comes to fold in the material, I don't want to put it across there just yet, it kind of comes straight down as a shadow. That line going across, it disappears. It does get a little bit darker as it goes up. It's a little bit darker here. So I'm not left with a line across the top anymore. Can you see that? Hopefully that makes sense. Carry on chatting. It's good to have the talk there. I think we were having a good chat before we were so rudely interrupted. Not by Andrea, that's fine. We live in the same house, you have to use the same space, so I've always said to her, look, you can come in when I'm doing broadcasts, I don't mind. It's quite nice to kind of see people's real life, that they are human beings, I'm not some corporate identity. You know, this is my real life studio. Things like cats running around, knocking things over are an all part of life, and I think even in studio space, people try and shy away to have this almost unrealistic perfection going on around them all the time. That is a complete illusion and a total lie, and it makes me kind of question it a little bit. You know, if people are that perfect, geez, I've got a lot to learn, and there's an awful lot of development in my life to get to that point. But I think it's just an unrealistic element in life that doesn't exist. I was following the same kind of element of the shadow down. I've not drawn a line across here where this white bit is. I'm starting just to darken down the area around it with a flat space of tone, and leaving the page itself, which is white obviously, to give me the illusion of this white stripe starting to appear. Let's zoom out a little bit, maybe you can see that there a little bit better. Yeah, lost the button on my camera. Oh, there we go. So to give you an idea of scale on this thing, that's my thumb. So there's the size of a little finger. That's her entire head. So you can see there's not much space in which to make marks too expressive and wild. I've got to be very considered how I'm putting these marks down, because it's a small portrait, hence drawing with mechanical pencil. So there's not much area to deal with. When I look at the shape of a shadow of a nostril, I've got to get that in kind of the right place. Drawing small is actually a lot harder than drawing something on a larger scale. But often when we start off drawing, we want to draw small just in case we make a mistake. Then it's a small mistake, and nobody can see the drawing because you can hide it up. You can hide it with your hand as you're drawing it as well. It's very difficult to draw on a tiny scale. You can break things down into simple forms in a small scale, that's fine, but when you go into break those forms down into shapes and detail and textures and things, that's when it becomes more difficult. Often you'll see little thumbnail sketches, because they're classically about the size of your thumbnail, of proportion ideas or little colour studies which are quite small, because it's not about detail at that point. They're looking at the tonal elements of colour. There's one of our cats fighting. Two of our cats fighting. Yep, lovely. It's all happening today. Where they do colour studies, and it's not necessarily just about capturing the likeness at that point. It's a colour study for a painting. They want to see how the colours work together, how palettes might work together. When you're working out proportions, the composition of something on a page, the format might be landscape or portrait, but how the face might sit in different places. So rather than drawing the face several times beautifully rendered, they'll just do kind of like a little thumbnail sketch of where things can fit and sit, and move things around a little bit to work out the composition before they go to their bigger pictures. So a bit of planning goes ahead of the placement of things. So often when they come to a white page, they know exactly where they want to put the top of the head. They want to know exactly how they're going to lay things out on their page. It's not the very first time they're going to do it. In a drawing exercise like this, we are at kind of learning stage by stage, and you're okay to turn over the page and to try again, and to turn over the page and try it again, and to turn over the page and try. It's okay to do it, because this is that kind of learning process where you can make mistakes and just go, do you know what, rather than rub it all out and start again, try and carry on with it, I'm going to keep that as my learning exercise, as a way of remembering, and a way of seeing your progression as well, which is quite important. I'm going to try this again, and the next time you go to attempt the portrait, you're generally more adept at getting it because you've observed it so much already. You start to really understand the form and structures of the thing that you were drawing. So there's no mistake in, or failure in, trying things several times. It's okay to turn over the page and to try it out again, make a mistake. Okay, rather than try and rectify it, I'm just going to again. Then you get to a stage of where you can push past that, just turning over, and rectify the process, so you can develop the drawing. This is what I was saying about drawing lightly. I make mistakes, it's okay, I'm not turning over the page. I know I can just adjust and adjust and adjust. If I have gone to so much where I've done so much adjustment on something, it's starting to destroy the surface of the page, I will start again, because the quality of the paper is what I'm adjusting on. If the quality of the paper's gone, I know it's eventually going to deteriorate the quality of the drawing. Hope that makes sense. Where are we at now? Started at what's half? Oh, okay, 20 minutes. 20 minutes. Wait. Chat less, draw more. I'm sure you'll be happy to hear that. Let's say, be very happy for you guys if you're about tomorrow to kind of follow through the process of Sky Arts. Just hear the conversations. I kind of reflected on it as well. We can have a conversation about it. What people's experience of it was. How did they find, what did they find difficult? What did they find easy? What did they like? What didn't like? About the process of sitting and observing, drawing somebody. People focus on the time, but sometimes it's not the time itself which scuppers them. It's where the connection either with the sitter doesn't work for them, or they find it very frustrating because the internet went down, or There's loads of different elements to it, but I think it's really interesting when I was listening to some of the reading some of the comments from other sitters, other artists, when they went through the process as it was on last time through the lockdown. Was really interesting how some people hated drawing beards, or I hate drawing glasses, and there's another person with their glasses, and why are we always drawing men? Where are the women? And they were railing against the things, but the process of creating the drawing and the portraiture was the commonality that brought everybody together. Some people loved the detail of the background. Some people hated the detail of the background. Whatever it was on the screen, there was always somebody who wasn't happy. But what was interesting is sometimes you got people who produce beautiful pieces of work because they'd never tried anything like that before, and that was interesting. That was, you kind of kept your eye out for people. I started to connect with a lot of people online that I would have never really come across, because the internet is huge, and so is Instagram, whose artworks I never would have come across if it hadn't been for portrait artists, where I'm looking at things and taking influence from them, and thinking about reflecting back into my own work and challenging myself about some of the processes and some of the ways I do things. Could I possibly move the quality of my work in a particular way? Do I want to? Is it the right time to do that? So yeah, the conversations are really interesting that come out of it. And they're not always about the actual process of drawing that portrait on that particular day. So yeah, we'll kind of reflect about it maybe next week and see what you guys thought, how you got on. Angela, it's okay for you to, if you want to talk about your class as well, more than happy to have this chat and discussion about what you've been asked to do and how you're finding it. You can use this as a springboard for those things. If you don't feel comfortable, this is for everybody as well, if you don't feel comfortable about chatting about them live on YouTube, it's understandable. You can ask me a question directly on my Facebook page, and just send me a little message. Quite happy to chat about them there as well. Again, that goes if you've got any issues with your artwork and you want to develop something and you can't quite, some of the come encourage up to ask the question. Well, we're doing it live, you can ask the question there. Just send me a wee message just so I can sort of make these online sessions kind of relevant to you. I'm going to darken this lip slightly as well. You can see these two lines on either side of the mouth, which is a little bit darker than the rest of the mouth. And by putting those two little lines in, it's pushing out the light a bit. So those two little dot lines outside the mouth and the light bit in the middle makes the lighter bit appear further forward and the dark bits recede back. I noticed that the top lip is darker than the bottom lip. So again, I'll slightly turn these down. There's quite a straight lip going across. It's not too much kind of like traditional shaped lips that go across the top. When I say traditional shaped, I mean that sort of cartoon style of the Betty Boo lip that doesn't really exist in nature. That dip where the philtrum is, that little dip underneath the nose, comes from that shadow. There's a small darkness just there. The bottom lip is lighter, but it's definitely darker than I have it here, and it's more structured. To that point. a very thin dark line going between two light bits of the reflection of the lipstick. Still lighter than it needs to be right now, but that certainly helps find the location of where the mouth is, and there's a little tiny crease of the mouth just to the left hand side. There's a small little dimple, and there's a shadow line just underneath the bottom lip, and it goes a little bit darker on this side of the mouth here again, to where there's like a little tiny dimple just there, which is slightly darker, and then just bring the shading all the way up through to the top of the eye here, because that's relatively similar all the way through. So how one shadow or tone or shape of shadow flows over a space, and what is it doing? Is it going in or out, or is it a kind of an undulating surface? Now the face is an undulating surface. There's lots of areas where it'll go in and come back out again. So say for example it was across the cheekbone, it dips back in underneath the cheek, and it comes back out again to hit the jawline and goes back in again underneath the chin. So that kind of undulating surface will mean that you've got to render the texture that you're putting down in that same form, following the form of the shape. You know, you can't just colour it in because it wouldn't follow the shape and form of it. When I look at this now, I can start to see that where I've got this darker line here, it kind of makes this eye look thinner and smaller, but on this side I need to bring the size of this pupil. It's kind of expanded a little bit, so I need to bring this pupil down, because the pupil is actually inside the eyelid. You know, it was expanding itself outside. The pupil itself was joining up to where the eyelashes are, but there was a thickness of the eyelid in between it, which might not sound like very much, but it gives you space in which to then narrow the shape of the eye, so those eyes start to look more in proportion again. If that pupil was to grow bigger, it would look like she's got one big eye, one small eye. So it's curating and controlling those things. They're also not as dark as they need to be right now. I can soften this little dark mark that I got there. I'm just going to dab that with the pencil eraser. Just to take the darkness off of it. It was getting a little bit of a dark smudge, and just by dabbing it and taking a layer of graphite off, has softened it a little bit to be the right kind of shadow that it needs to be for the rest of the picture. And then it kind of blends out into the rest of the face. So the rendering, you notice, that I'm putting on is very light, layered upon layer, building up the darknesses that I need, but always reflecting back to the shape of the form. This is where I hear where people get very bored. It's like, I've done that bit, I don't have to do that again. And I'd say the whole picture isn't finished until it's all done, which might sound obvious, but sometimes you do have to go back over whole areas a few times to create the subtleties and differences that create the form of a face or of the element that you're drawing. Might be material of a top, or the camera switched itself off again. Switch it back on. Shoot. Sorry about this. Coming towards the end anyway. Guys, I hope this is helping. So apologies for the... Move my camera out of the way. There we are. Yeah. Just clicking buttons there, it wasn't working. Yeah, so hope this is working for you. Oh, there's like somebody else. Drawing's like £10 an hour skill. Oh, God, I thought I'd missed that one. Okay. There we go. Let's just get that one. Do you know what? I was gonna read them, but obviously somebody's come back as somebody else. Amazing. But I can for it. Yeah. Let's just get rid of all of that. This is a shame. I actually hadn't scrolled down in the text. I thought it had gone quiet, but there we go. Bye. Well, I was busy chap, Mr. King. He's gone. And yeah, I thought it was scrolling live for me. It hadn't scrolled live, so apologies for that. It was only when I clicked back to change the camera that I saw it. So don't get upset. Is there someone who hasn't got a life? By the way, we can't see Andrea. Good. Andrea would be very happy that you couldn't see her, Desiree, because she was crawling along like that. I could just see the top of her ginger hair on the screen. I thought you might be able to catch it as well. She'll know. She'll be pleased to know she got let off without being seen. She's like a little ninja when she came in the room there. So yeah, just slowly building up these forms. Can feel like you're kind of very repetitive process, but it's kind of is a quicker part as you go on because you're covering it not to the same extent. Your first layer takes a while to lay down. Second layer you're putting less on. Third layer putting less on, but you're building up the darknesses as you do that. So it's not as frustrating as it first may appear as you follow the process. What you do need to do is be honest with yourself and ask yourself, is this dark enough? Does this need to be darker? And often we get to a stage where things are in the right place, but we're afraid of ruining it, but the things aren't dark enough, and therefore the picture's never quite finished because the tones aren't quite dark enough. So there we are. I'm just starting to build in. I know his eyebrows a lot darker as well. So I want to try and put across here is how this top has a darker bit here as well, because it starts to blend. It starts to pull the forms together. You know, if we're looking at the what's this like triangular shape on her top. Ooh, we've got lots of chat there. Sorry. Oh, there we go. I've got to scroll down to the top. Kind of flicked back up again. I thought I missed more people typing stuff. I haven't. So yeah, apologies for the interruptions in chat that we had today. Don't let it put you off. These people are easily kind of dealt with. It's not a big thing at the end of the day. Just think it was some random person shouting in the middle of a room to themselves. You kind of just ignore them and carry on with your own stuff. So we carry on with our own chat, and I'll just deal with them when I see them and switch them off. There's more effort in their typing there is in me clicking the delete button on. Once I figure that out, they'll go and bother somebody else. So even just that little bit of tone that I've put in there. Let's zoom this back out. You can't quite see it on that photograph. There is actually more of a you can see in the photograph in the bottom right hand corner. The photograph you can see on screen. You can see this triangular effect happening. Gives a nice crisp edge to the form and shape of the edge of the picture, which I haven't quite got there. But just lets me donate to space where the portrait stops without drawing a box line around it. Which will be nice for the portrait that goes below it and to the side of it as well. What I'm going to do, it might feel counterintuitive to do this, but I'm going to brush over this whole portrait with a soft brush, and it will soften some of the detail that's started to build up, and it might look like it's eradicated some of it as well. That's not too much of an issue. Because what I'm doing is I'm building up layers anyway at this point, refining them as I go along, and every time I layer up graphite from this point onwards, I will get more control and detail appearing in the picture. But obviously when you have seen how I've built these layers up, I haven't ever really used the very tip of the point of my pencil to draw things like eyelashes. I may put darker lines down to create a shape of a space of a, but these eyelashes that you can see in the eyes here are really just a darker shadow. There's no detail as in individual hairs. I'm not going into the realism of it that much. I'm going to put a layer of graphite down on the top. This is quite stripy at top, but I might suggest that with the eraser by pulling through those darker lines to create like an illusion of this white and black striped top. And same thing with the shading and shadow of the neckline here. See how there's no dark lines that can really be seen in this part of the neck, but as you go around you can see it's quite ribbed. It's because this side of the jumper is more in shadow, so you can see the ribbed nature of the neckline. But as it comes around to the lighter, whiter areas, it disappears. So in here what I can do is, if I make this darker than it just needs to be, then I can rub out or dab out with the eraser the highlights rather than trying to draw the dark lines in. Alex, thanks again. Lee, Pete, never go have a go to the old too bad today in ours, which is you got for the class. Yeah, I really, again, Alex, I'm really sorry that we couldn't get to do the class today. I was looking forward to doing the class in the morning and doing this in the afternoon and kind of having that flow of it. And it's a bit frustrating that I didn't get a chance to do it today. I'm sorry we didn't get to see each other, but fingers crossed we get some more news later into COVID as to what they're planning. Hopefully they'll be back. or they work out maybe a Zoom room or something like that, where we can have a more one-to-one, signed-up basis learning process. You know, Zoom rooms are great for that because you have to actually curate who comes in and who goes out. So this is an open forum. This is why we got people dropping in and typing whatever they want to in the chat bar. But yeah, fingers crossed we can work something like that as well. All right, guys, it is 4 o'clock, so that's 2 hours done this week. So again, it's gone really quick. Thanks for all the guys who've joined us. The new people that's followed, very much appreciated. Again, apologies for the stuff I can't control, like the strange new trolls that suddenly descended upon us. Andrew says hi as well. Yeah, glad to be back. We will be back here again, same time next week, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I will see anybody who's up available for it tomorrow. I'm going to do a live paint along to the Sky Portrait. I'm going to try and broadcast that and watch it at the same time. I'm not going to be conversing much during that. There won't be much chit chat. It'll be literally me just getting on doing my painting. And so yeah, okay. See you guys next week, same time, 2